presiding officers, members of Creative Spirits, visiting friends, ladies and gentlemen. Extremely delighted to join you with you once again to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King and African American History Month. I'm also deeply honored in sharing this program with so many distinguished personalities such as Sister Muhammad from the Recreation Division. I believe that there's nothing majestic or sublime than the quiet testimony of parents who are teaching their children to take their rightful place on the stage of life. I was deeply moved by the program and its theme, The Power of Words. And I have been following Martin Luther King's philosophy all my life, trying to serve humanity. And I've talked to many different people from all walks of life, but today I just want to do something a little different. I want to talk to the children. I want them to know the things that I learned from Dr. Martin Luther King. One, this is very simple truths over the years. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'll tell you it's years of experience and years of exposure. 99% of us are good and kind people. Two, the world is always watching us. Three, we must never rest until we are the best. Four, faith in spiritualism is our power. 5, academic knowledge is our power. Planning is our power. Practicing patience is our power. Unity and doing what is right is our power. Self-evaluation is our power. And when you combine all of these blessings, you will find that you are full of power, that you are somebody. And so I tell you today that I love you and I love me. And these simple types of words, the power in these words, will make history. So now I'm going to recite Dr. Martin Luther King's Knock at Midnight. One day after finishing school, I was called to a little church down in Montgomery, Alabama. And I started preaching there, and things were going well in that church. It was a marvelous experience. But one day, a year later, a lady by the name of Rosa Parks decided that she wasn't going to take it any longer, and she stayed in a bus seat. And you may not remember it because it's way back now, several years, but it was the beginning of a movement where 50,000 black men and women refused absolutely to ride the city buses, and we walked together for 381 days. That's what we got to learn up in the North. We've got to learn to stick together. And we in the South stuck together, and we sent out the call, and no one rode the buses. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. The people of Montgomery asked me to serve as the spokesman. And as the president of the new organization, the Montgomery Improvement Association, that came into being to lead the boycott, I couldn't say no. And then we started our struggle together. Things were going well for the first few days, but then, about 10 or 15 days later, after the white folks in Montgomery knew that we meant business, they started doing some nasty things. They started making nasty telephone calls, and came to the point that some days more than 40 telephone calls would come in threatening my life, the life of my family, the life of my children. I took it for a while, in a strong manner. But I never will forget one night. It was very late. It was around midnight. And you can have some strange experiences at midnight. I had been out meeting with the steering committee all that night. And I came home. My wife was in the bed, and I immediately crawled in the bed to get some rest, to get up early the next morning to try to keep things going. And immediately, the telephone started ringing, and I picked it up. On the other end was an ugly voice. And that voice said to me in substance, "We're tired of you and your mess now. And if you're not out of this town, in 3 days we're going to blow your brains out and blow up your house." I had heard these things before and took it in a strong manner, but that night, for some reason, it just got to me. You see, I tried to go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I was frustrated, bewildered. Then I got up and went back to the kitchen to warm me some coffee, thinking that coffee would give me a little relief. And I sat down at that kitchen table and I thought about many things. I pulled back on the theology and philosophy that I had studied at the university, trying to give philosophical and theological reasons for the existence and the reality of sin and evil, but the answer didn't quite come then. I sat there and thought about a beautiful little daughter who had just been born about a month earlier. We have 4 children now, but we only had one then. She was the darling of my life. I'd come in night after night and see that little gentle smile. And I sat at that table thinking about that little girl and thinking about the fact that she could be taken away from me any minute. I sat there and thought about a beautiful, dedicated, devoted, and loyal wife who was over there asleep. I could be taken from her, and she could be taken from me. And I got to the point that I couldn't take it any longer, and I got weak. And something said to me, "You can't call on Daddy now. He's up in Atlanta, 175 miles away. You can't even call on Mama now. You've got to call on that something and that person that your daddy used to tell you about. That power that can make a way out of no way." I discovered then that religion had to become real to me, and I had to know God for myself. And I bowed down over that cup of coffee. I never will forget it. And I prayed a prayer, and I prayed out loud that night. I said, "Lord, I'm down here trying to do what's right. I think I'm right. I think the cause that we represent is right. But Lord, I must confess that I'm weak now and faltering and losing my courage." And it seemed at that moment that I could hear an inner voice saying to me, "Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you even until the end of the world." He promised never to leave me alone. No, never alone. He promised never to leave me alone. Sometimes I feel discouraged. And I don't mind telling you this morning that sometimes I feel discouraged. I felt discouraged in Chicago, moving through Mississippi and Georgia and Alabama. Sometimes I feel discouraged. Living every day under the threat of death, I feel discouraged sometimes, living every day under extensive criticisms, even from my own people. I feel discouraged sometimes. Yes, sometimes I feel discouraged and feel my works in vain. But then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. There is a bond in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a bond in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. God bless you.